Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is January 27th, 2019, Sunday evening edition. We will have Henrik join us here soon. Let's go ahead and get started with some space weather news. Take a look at our solar wind speeds at 417.4 kilometers per second with a density of 5.3. Take a look at our sunspot AR2733. Now, I had talked about how this was going to be a decaying sunspot, and actually has grown to sunspot number 26. That's 14 days in 2019 without sunspots so far. Our TCI actually went up today from 3.40 to 3.58. And looking at our KP indices, sitting at a 1 with a 24-hour max of 2. And this new coronal hole here on the SDO, we should see increased solar wind speeds from the sun around the 30th and the 31st. Nothing really strong as far as geomagnetic concern. Take a look at TSI. We came in at January 19th. Check this out. I'm sorry. Yeah, the 18th. 1360.5980. So quite a dip from the last show that we reported TSI reading of 1360.6990. So that's a significant drop in the space weather department there. And before we go into the aspect of headlines here, quickly while we're talking about space weather, we had a weak solar flare measuring a C5.0, and it peaked, erupted active region 2733 at 1322 UTC on January 26, 2019. The eruption started at 1312 and ended at 1334. This was the strongest solar flare since February 18th of 2018. As we take a look at the moment of the solar flare, take a look at this, folks. And, I think Friday night when I ended our broadcast, I think we saw this at the tail end. And just, I didn't really see it that much, I think, on Friday. But this happened actually on Saturday, 26th. That was something different then. I apologize, folks. Henrik, how you doing, bud?
Oh, I'm doing quite okay. Thank you. I hope you are too.
We are doing just fine. Thank you very much. How's the weather been your way? You posted a couple videos. Interesting enough, we had a situation with a burning bush.
Burning bush?
Yeah, I remember you came across a burning bush and was just wondering if that situation had taken care of itself.
No, it had evolved, or what you can say, but I will talk about that a little bit later, if that's okay. For now, I will tell you that all the snow in my garden is gone. We have been had rain all day today, and I actually think it's still raining right now. So all the snow is gone. Maybe not in the whole Denmark, but in my part of the country. And the next day will be a mix. We will still have mostly sub-zero temperatures in the night, and sometimes very cold in the night, down to between -10 to -15 degrees Celsius. Well, DMI is a little bit uncertain about that because, every time you go into the homepage of DMI, they have been changing it, and they are changing it a lot these days, But we will in the next week have a mix between rain and snow.
And it's funny you mentioned about the weather changing constantly on you. I know between AccuWeather and Weather Channel apps, you can't get either of them to line up. One's warmer, the other one's colder. One has a lot of snow, the other one doesn't. To me, that's dangerous. We talked about this last year when certain weather apps were not updating properly, and some people actually lost their lives because they didn't get the alerts in time. And I'm talking about the avalanches. I believe it was in the mountains of Italy last winter, and a heavy snow warning came out pretty quick and sudden, except certain apps did not alert people that this snowstorm is happening. And unfortunately, some people got caught in the storm. I think it was around 10 or 11 people that were caught in this avalanche, and it didn't end well at all. So Just noticed that myself today too, Henrik, that, a lot of uncertainty in the forecast. Anything past 4 or 5 days, it seems like, is pretty much a coin flip. This winter, in my opinion, has been a tricky one as far as forecasting. There's a few of you out there who've gotten it right. As far as long-term so far, I know Joe Bastardi had talked about weather conditions, severe weather conditions for the east and northeast for 45 to 60 days. So far, that looks like that's going to happen so far.
Shut up. Sorry, I got a new pet. I'm sorry, I got a new pet, and it's a mix between a dog and a bird, so it's a bit weird.
It's a dog bird. It's a bird dog.
Yeah.
Old Everly Brothers song. Anyway, earthquakes formed near Nevado de Julia volcano in Colombia. Nothing major here to report, but maybe the 1200 aftershocks were kind of a big deal. Shallow earthquake registered by the Geological Service of Colombia, a mag 5.4 hit about 7.4 miles deep in the northeast of central peak of the Nevado de Julia volcano around 1232 UTC on January 26, 2019. The USGS is reporting it as an M56 depth of 6.2 miles. Residents reported damaged homes, broken glass, rock falls, municipality of Paez. Here we have some footage here. Always great information from watchers.news. Interesting side note here. This started erupting on February 19th, 2007 after more than 200 years of inactivity. The eruptions caused major mudslides and debris was scattered along the Paez River, but communities living in close proximity were warned on time thanks to monitoring equipment and early warning system, which allowed some 5,000 people living in the area to evacuate. The last eruptive period of this volcano took place from October of 2008 and January of 2012. So 2008 would have been the beginning of the last solar minimum we had, not grand solar minimum, but solar minimum in the cycle, and ending the eruption time right around January 12th as we started to see an increase once again in sunspots. So for those of you who are new to the channel and wonder why we report things like earthquakes, volcanoes, and then extreme weather, is that we believe that these events are only touching the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what to expect during a grand solar minimum. Whether that starts in 2020 or 2030s, the point of this information that we're passing along is that when the grand solar minimum is here, these events are going to be more frequent and they're going to be more consistent. And sometimes I get myself caught up with the idea that when we see 16-inch snow one day and then 3 days later, another 16-inch snow, and then 3 days later, we see another 16-inch snow. We covered Harper. It hit us pretty good. We got almost 20 inches of snow in parts of our town. And I think, when you start thinking about, well, if we only have to deal with this one little storm in a 2 or 3 week period, that's easy to do, the cleanup and all that. Now, this storm, Harper, has left its scar for sure in this area. We had 2 inches of rainfall about 3 days after Harper. And all that did was solidify the snow. It melted to maybe about 4 inches of depth off, 4 to 5 inches tops. And the rest is now solid ice, the snow. We're having off and on showers up here, and more snow is on the way to the northeast. But the reason why I'm talking about this is because these little events right here are a warm up for what's to come in the future. So I think yeah, well, I just think it's important that we share these stories. I want people to be familiar with these events and aware and not scared. I mean, fill in where you'd like to on this, but I thought some people, there's a lot of new faces out there, and I want to explain why we go over these headline stories. I got a comment the other day, Henry. Somebody asked.
I think it's right what you are doing, because there's always coming new people, and one thing we have to remember is now this is just me going back to the year that I was born. I was born in 1966, and back then there was 3.4 billion people on Earth. Today, we are 7.7 billion. And back in 1966, when I was born, 1.2 billion people out of 3.4 billion was living in cities. Now we are in 2019. 4.2 billion people are living in cities out of 7.7 billions. So there are so many more people now than there were back then. And, and not only in cities, also in other urbans. And that's why, so many people are still freaking out and telling, well, it's not getting worse. And some people say it is getting worse. Well, one thing is for sure, and that is, even if we did know all the cycles, even if we don't, we cannot say that they will be the same as it was 400 years ago, or even further back, or not, because everything is changing every time, and also because that we have been changing the world.
That's a good point too. Just because certain events that happened 400 years ago doesn't mean it's going to happen to the exact same way. This could be way worse. The conditions that we're getting ready to head into could be way worse. And to follow up on your point about more people in the world, not only that, but technology's changed too. So there's so much more that can be affected by this next grand solar minimum. And the conversation Mari and I had earlier today, Henrik, we were reading some Twitter headlines, and Starman had tweeted out some things that, they weren't pleasant to think about. But everything that he tweeted out as far as what's going on right now with magnetic pole reversal, with the Milankovitch cycle, there's so many cycles right now that are happening. And
yeah, and like I say, son, come on.
I think your cat really is unhappy about the cycles.
Yeah, you know what? The problem is right now that I got 4 cats and they will not go out because it's pissing down outside, So, cats get frustrated when they cannot get out, because they want the space, So cats don't even like to be together so much, They like to be with daddy, but not with other cats. So I'm sorry for the interruptions.
No. Okay.
Yes, but what I was going to say about cycles is that you are so right. There are so many cycles, and unfortunately, I think there are still so many things we don't know about. And I when you said that, I was just thinking, is the sun fixed? I mean, I know the sun is moving like a lot of other things in the Milky Way, but when we see stuff on the net or reading stuff, then everything is moving around the sun.
Yeah.
But is the sun really that fixed? Do you know that?
What's that? The sun moves. From what I understand, we're almost going through the galaxy, spiraling around the sun, as the sun is also moving through the universe as well. But you're right. Who really knows? There's a lot of work that's been done to prove several theories, but we are moving through the universe right now and heading into unknown territory. So it's hard to say, yeah, looks like it's going to be something like what we had back in the modern minimum, because right now, the record-breaking galactic cosmic rays that we are experiencing, and there's really no way to say that we can compare accurately what we had back in the 1600s versus what's going on right now. All we can do is just observe what we're looking at, compare it to the past, and try to find common ground or a pattern that we can just use as a model to kind of get what to expect in the coming years when we do head into the grand solar minimum. I tell you one thing, after looking at the list of things that Starman had retweeted out, and it kind of upset me to think that there's so much going on, Henrik. There's so much that we need to do for preparation, and everybody says, yeah, we know, we get it, we got to do this, we got to do that. And I'm really worried about society not being able to get off of the technology tit, if you know what I mean. I just feel like people are just, talking the talk right now. We really need to start emphasizing walking the walk. And I know that's hard to do. Another conversation that Mari and I had You know, Agenda 21. I'm not much into conspiracy theories or anything like that, but Mari was explaining to me about some of the things that's in Agenda 21. And it is concerning when what we promote here at this channel is self-reliability, self-sustainability after the grid goes down. Grow your own food, fetch your own water, build your own shelters. But with Agenda 21, are we going to be able to do that? Are we going to be able to stay put in our rural home in the middle of the mountains and sustain our own ranch? And if this Agenda 21 thing is accurate and really does go into effect if and when the grid does crap their pants, it doesn't sound like to me that a lot of this practice of self-stability will be used for a long period of time. I'm saying it's going to take time for everyone to say, okay, the grid's down, it's not coming back. Time's going to go by where we are going to have to fend for ourselves for a short period of time. Do I believe the government's going to come knocking on your door and say, hey, you guys got food and water? No, but it does sound like there is a plan to get people, and it sounds crazy, but you know, it's out there, and I don't know much about it myself. Mari has a little bit more info about it than I do, but it sounds like they want to move people closer together in concentrated areas, to keep a better handle on population, and I guess the hope would be to keep crime down as well. But also, it's a slick way of kind of installing the human race back into a purposeful society again. All right, look, we're all here at this camp together. This is what we have to do to pitch in, to get the grid back, to get the water back, to get the plumbing back, to get everything back. We must work together. And I guess that's what they're going to try to do if that happens. But in the meantime, it's still important because we don't know if that's going to happen for us. Again, there's so many uncertainties about how this is all going to play out. So that's why it's still important to learn about growing indoors, learn about being self-stability as far as energy goes. Solar panel.
Yeah, but if I can say, you know, like I've said so many times, it's very important before people begin to prep to find out of a lot of things, because otherwise you can risk that all your prepping is for nothing.
Yeah.
You know, so if you are growing inside and you know how to grow inside, I'm also growing inside. That's so great, but the minute the power goes off,
yeah,
I cannot grow inside because there's no power.
Mari, there was we have a friend that she is writing a book, and we hope to maybe kind of interact that book with our channel at some point. But she is writing a book on homesteading and stuff of this nature. Now, this woman also is a prepper herself, and I haven't seen everything, but from what I heard, the prepping level that she's on has been described as ridiculous. And in my opinion, there's no such thing. She sounds like she's well prepared, and that's the place I'm going to be heading to once the food starts drying up where I live. But it's very important prep. It's very important to start taking steps now. And while we still have the luxury of the internet, learn as much as you can about the topic. I think this channel is focused a lot about the extreme weather. And again, what I was trying to start to say here at the beginning of this broadcast is that everything that we talk about on this channel, we believe has a relation to, increased cosmic rays, cooling, grand solar minimum, things that tie into with these natural cycles. And in other words, we're also anti-AGW as well. So, but, if anything, I think Mari and I do a really good job at giving off grand solar minimum news more, and then presenting papers to you guys and giving you the links so you can kind of digest them and go through it yourselves. Because there's a lot to talk about. We could probably do a show every day if we have the exact time to do so.
Yeah, and you also have to remember that it can be fun to do the prepping at the same time. Take the kids out in the woods if you're not used to do that, and teach the kids how to make a simple thing like a fire.
Very important. It could save their life. That's the biggest thing about that. It could really save their life. What did I just do? Oh, it's a different page. Sorry, folks. All right, so here we go. Just love the my ads as I'm going away. I've got quite a bit of. I think this wants me to sign up, Mari. It's almost impossible, folks, to pull articles anymore off the internet unless you're signing up for the website. This won't even let me read the article. It's amazing. So I was going to kind of do a coast-to-coast tour tonight on the headlines, and it won't even let me do that. But I will mention this. I'll bring up the National Weather Service map. The areas that I was trying to talk about, and I'll zoom in right here in the pink. Those are winter storm warnings, and then we have blizzard warnings in the far corner, the northwestern part of Minnesota. I just discussed a couple days ago where we were having a snow drought in this part of the country, but it looks like we're going to get plenty of snow. Most of Michigan is in a winter storm warning, if not a watch. The next storm is moving its way right now. Mari says there's a name for this one. I have not seen it. Again, that's just me being guilty of not watching mainstream news at this point. I think we rely on a lot of our own research and what we gather up from the stuff that we look on a daily basis. So we'll skip that one. We'll go into Unified Schools closed Monday. This is in the Milwaukee area, 9 to 11 inches of snow. So they just said we're closing school. The Racine County could be hit with 9 to 11 inches of snow Sunday through Monday. I'm sorry?
Winter Storm Jaden.
Winter Storm Jaden, thank you.
What? Did you say Jake?
It's Winter Storm Jake. No, it's Jaden.
Okay.
We had a Winter Storm Riley last year.
Yeah, I know.
And this one could be, like, my son's name is Aiden, and so this could be a combination of me and my son being, a beast. So it might be a Jaden, Jake and Aiden. Anyway, because of the snowstorm, Racine Unified Schools will be closed Monday. The heaviest snow will be between midnight and 6 a.m. Why am I mentioning this article? I think, and as a parent, just like many of you out there, when it's parents that have to drive their children to school, or maybe your kid walks to school 10 to 15 minutes a morning, I'm glad to see some responsible school districts out there. The wind chills, negative 40, negative 50 by Tuesday and Wednesday night. So it's going to be cold starting Monday. They know what's coming. They've seen the models. They're listening to the warnings and appropriately canceling school instead of waiting until the last minute, possibly people already on the road traveling towards school when they shouldn't be out on the roads, period. So kudos to Racine County here in the Milwaukee area. Chicago, we've talked about this already. The snow, 6 inches of snow is nothing compared to what they're getting ready to follow with this brutal cold. Now, as you guys can see, Chicago, right there close to Wisconsin, they're only getting the 4 to 6. They're expecting a little bit heavier snow a little further north, starting 11 p.m. Sunday, ramping up drastically after 1 a.m. tonight. Monday, snow will arrive in the northeast Illinois as winds tear through. It spins as high as 30 miles an hour, speeds, I should say. That's according to the National Weather Service. 6 inches of snow and close to the Wisconsin border, maybe a little bit more. This little graph here gives us the timing of when the snow is going to hit. And the temperatures, like I said, this is going to be the biggest thing, the dangerous cold weather, the wind chills. First of all, the temperatures from Tuesday to Thursday. The regular temperatures themselves will dip 20 below, possibly even colder than that on Thursday morning, as surface temperatures are expected to be near negative 25 degrees. The record is negative 27 back in 1985, by the way. Now, the wind chills, this is absolutely bone chilling, and I'm pretty sure schools are closed Wednesday morning, absolutely, and possibly even Thursday. Wind chill factors on Wednesday morning, negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Plus, it could be even colder than that. But this is definitely one of the most coldest bursts of Arctic air that we have seen to date. Definitely the coldest since the 2014 polar vortex. Henrik, you ever experienced temperatures in that range, the negative 40, negative 50 wind chills? You ever been through that?
No, I don't think so. But I can tell you that Finland and Lapland, who is used to cold, they have a record cold in these days, about minus 34 Fahrenheit.
Wow.
Yeah, that's cold.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I remember as a child, we had I lived in Columbus, Ohio at the time, and we had negative 45 degrees wind chill. And as a kid, I remember going outside, and if you didn't wear a scarf, you were an idiot. But the minute you breathed in that cold air, negative 65 wind chill, it literally felt like you were inhaling pins and needles into your chest. It takes your breath away when it's that cold. So this is some dangerous stuff here, especially for me. When I was a child, I had childhood asthma. So this was hard for me to even go outside and get out of the car and walk into the store with my mom. I remember the day we went to a Schottenstein's. I can't remember exactly. Maybe it was for Christmas shopping, but it was brutally cold out. Wind chills negative 60, negative 55, I believe. And this might have been actually the cold from the 1985 that we were talking about for Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's when I lived in Columbus, was from 85 to 88. So that lines up with that really, really, really cold outbreak that we had, that the records that they're talking about that being broke here in Chicago from 1985. This is that same kind of cold. Fast forward, 34 years? So interesting to see the cold records each year since 2016, since we started covering this. We have seen cold records being broken increasingly by the year. And each year they are being broke, these cold records are going back further each year. So these aren't just barely little records that are being broke. Like I said, each year it seems like we're breaking a new set of records from a different decade, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, especially the rain and snowfall. We've seen records that are falling from decades ago. All right, let's continue to travel towards the east. We'll make a quick little stop here in Michigan. Hello, Radical Gardener. If you're watching, we got some more snow for you. 6 to 8 inches in the snow in the Flint area. Port Huron is expecting 6 to 8 inches. Me being a Buckeyes fan from Ohio State, this was really hard to even talk about these cities here in that state to the north of us in Ohio. But they are getting some of their first significant snow of the year. Saginaw getting a foot possibly. And Bad Axe also looking at a foot. That is Bad Axe, not badass. Metro Detroit area looking at about 4 to 6 inches of snow. That's a moderate, nothing huge, nothing crazy, but it is typical snowfall for January. So, if there's anything I want to say about these headlines that I'm reading off tonight, this is the biggest one here, obviously. The winter storm watch going into effect Monday night for parts of Metro North Atlanta. So, guys, check this out. If you live in Alabama and go to the Northeast, there is going to be a winter storm watch from this particular region here in the South all the way through West Virginia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, New York, parts of all of New England. So very active weather map right now. But the biggest headline tonight, I think, will be Georgia. They are not looking for inches of snow, but 1 to 3 inches of snow in these regions here is enough to shut down for the day. These folks are not used to any kind of snowfall in the South here. They don't have the salt trucks for it. They don't have the salt for it. They don't budget for it. Maybe if somebody was listening to our channel and other channels like us, we've been talking about the South being a battle zone this winter, and it has. We've seen more ice and snow so far this year and this winter than we ever have. And like I said, we've been talking about it since the beginning of 2018, really, when we first started getting a look. Actually, it's probably around summertime when we started getting a look at the Farmer's Almanac for the upcoming winter. But still, this is an area that continues. This is another area that continues to get the increase of snow and ice. So I guess my question for you, Henrik, what kind of weather events would close schools where you're at? I mean, do you get weather events that close down businesses and schools from time to time? I'm completely ignorant to the climate in your region.
I'm sorry, I don't know the word school. Well, Of course, I don't know how it is today, I must admit that. But when I was a kid, I remember actually the few times I was in school was the days when we were getting off because it was too hot. But I don't remember that we have ever been get off because it was too cold. You know, in Denmark, I think I have only experienced down to minus 15 C, or that must be about 5 Fahrenheit. And then, of course, the wind chill. But I cannot remember in my time it has been colder than that.
So it sounds like you get as many snowstorms as Georgia gets here in the United States, which is not very often. Would that be correct in saying?
Yeah, we do have snowstorms from time to time, but I do remember that the last one was in the 80s and then one in the 70s, maybe one per decade, you know, or century, of course. Or is it decade?
I always figured you guys would be colder just because of your location, but I guess it shows you what I know.
Yeah, no, it's always a very mixed country, Denmark, I think, with all the seasons. But I think this year will, I mean, I hope everybody remembers last year, people in Denmark, especially how we went directly from winter to summer. We had no spring last year. You know, I have several videos on my channel from April months with snowmen, and I think it could go the same way this year, but I don't at the same time believe that we will have the same heat as we did last year. Not in Denmark.
Somebody is poking the numption around that the United States will see a record-breaking summer heat. And something that I've talked with many of you out there from time to time about, which is the grand solar minimum, and how there are areas that are still affected by heat waves and drought. Just because we're in a grand solar minimum doesn't mean the entire planet gets cold all of a sudden. I can't tell you how many times how long this process takes. I mean, just look at what we follow here on the TSI. And if you look at the overall picture, this is showing us from November 26th to the current date of January 19th. This is how far back as we get the readings for. But on the 19th of January, we're sitting at 1360.590. And on, let's see, November 26th, we're sitting at 1360.65. So we've dropped 1 squared meter. Is that what that is? Squared watt meter, something like that. So we've only dropped 1 in the value, 0.1, in just 3 months. So that gives you an idea of how slow this is when it comes to talking about TSI and sunspots, and how this decline, yes, it has begun, but this is going to
take. And how the jet stream is teasing us all the time.
Yeah. And that, from what I understand, the reason why our jet stream is so messed up is because of low solar wind. When we have high solar wind and a stronger magnetic field, the jet streams are tightened up and they're moving accordingly. But right now they're so reckless because of the low solar wind, because of low magnetosphere, low magnetic field. And that's why we're seeing all this crazy extreme weather. I know there's a lot of folks out there that want to tell you that it's global warming that's doing this, because there's a couple of airports that report record high temperatures. And I'm here to tell you folks that those readings, especially last year, were not being accepted. And I thought that was interesting. There was a lot more people reporting about that last year, how some of these records that were being posted in the Washington Post, and that they were being rejected because of the location of the instruments. For instance, there was a Scotland record that was broke, or Ireland. I can't remember which one it was. Nevertheless, the temperature reading they got was from a device that was located over asphalt at an airport near a tarmac and a runway.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and at the same time, there are more and more people and cars and other stuff in the cities, you know. So of course the cities will be hotter in the summer.
Yeah, that's there was another reading. Glad you mentioned the cars. There was another reading where they measured it on some parking area, and there was an ice cream truck running the entire time near this instrument. So this ice cream truck was parked. It runs on diesel fuel, and the exhaust. You tell me how many degrees did that ice cream truck ironically add to the record temperature that day? And just things like that happen. Like, we only pointed out a couple last year, but if we're only finding a couple here and there, not really trying to look, just think if we actually took time to research these record temperatures, these record heat temperatures, I bet you would find some really startling information about how these things are cooking the books. Because there's no way to like rig a cold temperature record. Like, you can't set, you know, a device near a freezer somewhere at a restaurant. These temperature readings that we get at the airport for record heat, when we get it for record cold, we're really getting it for record cold at that point. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of talk about the importance of areas that are used to this kind of weather and areas that aren't, and the fair reporting of it, which would be in an area that does not have asphalt to absorb sunlight. My favorite weatherman from Dayton, Ohio, his name is Jamie Simpson, works for Fox and Channel 22, which is an ABC Fox affiliate in Dayton, Ohio.
Really your favorite.
He is, because I used to idolize this man. He was one of my favorite meteorologists. Forget about the side problems that he had with his personal life that got him fired from the first job that he had with Channel 7. The thing that amazes me is that he tries so hard to act like he enjoys science, and it just amazes me. He'll post a video about once a month about how much it amazes him that on a cold day with snow on the ground, when the sun directly hits the blacktop, how steam comes off of the blacktop during a cold day. And I don't know, it makes me giggle whenever he posts a video on Facebook sounding so fascinated by the fact that, well, it's 20 degrees out, but there's steam coming off of the ground where the sun's hitting it. So, you know, that's crazy. Anyway, he's got the education and the degree, man. To me, it's like me making these snow videos out here in upstate New York. These upstate New Yorkers are like, this damn Southern Ohio boy needs to get a grip. It always snows like that up here. But for me, you know, I'm not used to that. So, you know, this was a great opportunity for me to get out in it and report in it. But for this guy, he's a meteorologist. He's a college educated person. I mean, this should not be an amazing situation for him to get onto Facebook and report how the steam is just billowing from the blacktop that's being pounded by the sun. Winter bottoms out, coldest weather ahead for February. This is a long-range outlook. Saturday, January 26th. January came in like a lamb across most of Canada, but is going out like a lion. We mentioned Canada the other day. Their cold temperatures are just out of this world right now. The map below shows temperatures anomalies for the first 9 days of January. The various shades of red highlighted were areas that were warmer than normal. No, that does not mean we were sitting in the 80s and 90s. These are just readings of temperatures that are above average. The map below, okay. The very mild weather across most of Canada caused many to ask, what happened to winter? And a lot of you here in the States said the same thing, and now you're getting kicked in the nuts by winter. After January 10th, we started to see a shift in the temperature pattern across Canada. Arctic air returned to the pattern with a couple of quick shots of frigid air, but milder Pacific air fought back at times as well, and it has. And we've seen that here in the Northeast too. The map below shows temperature patterns across Canada past days. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Here's where the colder air arrives, and this is on the 31st of January. And you guys can see that the majority of the upper Midwest, parts of the northern plains, are going to see some very, very, very frigid temperatures. Even in parts of the Northeast, I mean, we're still looking at 5 degrees below normal in parts of Maine for high temperatures. So this is weatherbell.com, by the way. Very, very knowledgeable site. We like these guys. Their models, their forecasts, they seem to be a little bit more fine-tuned than others out there. And again, here we have a model showing us temperatures from the 28th till February 2nd. Most of central Canada is going to be 18 degrees colder than normal for next week. And, you know, it's not a guarantee that that cold air will be pushed into the United States, but whether or not, we still have people that are going to be affected by these temperatures. As we head into the following week, February 4th into 9th, there are indications that the frigid pattern will relax somewhat with milder air to spread back into parts of Canada. It's too early to know if this brings a true thaw. Some southern areas, such as southern Ontario, Atlantic Canada, We'll have a few days of frigid weather at the start of February, but it looks as if the region has the best chance of seeing an above average temperature period for the 4th through the 9th. However, any relaxation of the pattern is expected to be short-lived from central prairies into southern Quebec. Colder than normal temperatures are expected to dominate most of the month of February into early March for across this region. Meanwhile, warmer temperatures expected to dominate in the BC and the Yukon. For Alberta and Atlantic Canada, we expect the back and forth swings will come to offsetting each other. So interesting, because here lately, the GFS has actually indicated that here in the United States, that we could be looking at a possibility of a February thaw. Now, we had our January thaw already here in the Northeast, and it was brief. Thankfully, the temperatures were moderate. Last year, when we had the thaw, we were at 60 degrees for a high, and we had ice jam floods all over Western New York. This year, the thaw was a little different. 42 degrees was the high. We had rain, but still moderately to the point where it didn't melt anything too rapidly to cause flooding. But we will see where we are heading into the month of February, because the GFS indicates here, and here we are, that this is where the coldest air is going to be, right around on the 30th. And that's gotten colder from the last run that we've shown this. Chicago, you are definitely going to rival breaking your temperatures there. And then as we move through the week, towards the weekend, that colder air moves a little bit further east, covering most of Ohio, and then retreating. Still cold in the beginning of February, negative temperatures for lows. But look at this. Starting February 3rd, we see this milder air. And when I say milder, I'm talking about 40s and 50s into Iowa and Nebraska, Missouri, Kansas, parts of Kentucky in the upper 40s. Cincinnati, this is average temperature for you guys in the 30s. The Northeast still remaining cold, but this ridge of warmer air, milder air, stretches all the way into the Ohio Valley by Monday, February 4th. Now, there's cold air again behind it coming in from the Arctic, but this milder air is almost acting as if it's keeping that cold, frigid air in Canada and that bay away from the United States. Meanwhile, we still have temperatures, highs and lows, near freezing. But as we get to February 6th, I mean, a real big heat wave on the East Coast, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. You guys are going to be close to 80 degrees. That's a welcome sign for you folks out there in the deep South. But February 7th, the models also show another strong blast of cold air is trying to make its way into the U.S. These forecast models are several days out, so anything can change between now and then. But by the 9th and the 10th, I mean, you know what's crazy is the relaxation of this cold being talked about for Canada. Guys, negative 23, negative 22, that's relaxed, all right? So the GFS models, in my opinion, have changed from earlier today. From what I've seen, the cold seems to be sticking around a little more through Tuesday, February 12th, versus what we saw now. Now, this, in my opinion, is relaxed temperatures. These are this is your daytime high. This is your nighttime highs. Daytime. So maybe they're talking about relaxed in this situation. 2 degrees above zero is definitely a lot warmer than negative 27. So if that's their form of relaxation on temperatures, then I get it. But to me, the freezing temperatures here in the U.S., that thaw period here on February 6th through the 7th is short-lived, just like the weather. What is this site again? I apologize. Weathernetwork.com. It is short-lived, as it's predicted. And, Joe Bastardi at weatherbell.com also has forecasted 45 to 60 days of severe winter weather conditions, as in deep freeze, cold, snow, sleet, ice. And since this beginning of these events a couple weeks ago, everything that's been forecasted has happened. There may be a couple of snowstorms that we were supposed to get dropping 3 to 6 inches fizzled away, but still.
Sorry.
That's all right. I'm on a rant thing here. Sometimes you just got to jump in and stop me.
Okay, but I won't. No, it was something. I will not interrupt you now. You can do it, finish, then I can tell you afterwards.
Oh, Let me guess. It had something to do with 3 to 6 inches, didn't it?
No.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
But now I get it.
So, I want to give everybody the GFS forecast real quick. Tuesday is when this next winter storm Jaden kicks in effect. The upper Midwest is going to get the bulk of this. But look, this snow line goes all the way into Louisiana near the Gulf of Mexico, through Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and the Northeast, Virginia, Philly, those areas, upstate New York, Maine. That's where we're going to see the heaviest amount of snow as this being moves out of here Thursday. There's where we're going to have the coldest air too, right here. High pressure is going to settle in. And pretty much on Thursday, January 31st, is going to be a very quiet day for everybody pretty much in the United States. Some lake effect snows in western New York and northwestern New York. But other than that, guys, enjoy it. Because after that, we see another storm system developing on the 1st that heads to the Atlantic states. The Northwest is getting ramped up again, and then another major snowstorm. This is where we need to pay attention because a lot of weather forecasters are saying that this cold will be short-lived, this thaw, I should say, on February 4th through the 6th. So still a few days out. This could be all rain like they're expecting it. But I've seen some of the other models, and they're being a little bit more colder, a little snowier. But this right here, as of now, this system, which I thought would be the first major storm of February, it will be a major storm for people in Wisconsin, but not so much here on the East Coast and the eastern part of the United States. And then the 5th of February, again, those cold temperatures starting to settle over us. And this is another storm on February 6th, which could be a major storm in the Northeast if the temperatures fall below freezing. And as you see on February 7th, the snow does inundate the Northeast, moving out into the 8th. High pressure settling again. Another big system moving across. This next storm on the 10th. Again, too far out to be sure of, folks, but I thought the 3rd and the 4th of February was going to be the next northeastern storm. It could be the 10th. So we have one coming up on Tuesday, and another drop of snow that could be another significant 6 to 12 inches. Again, February 10th, February 11th. And wow, right behind that, February 12th, Tuesday, 2019. Look at this. A major system is trying to get its act together in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. And behind that is some Pacific moisture. And if that locks up with that system and these cold air stays in place across Ohio, Pennsylvania, and the Northeast, we could be looking at quite the monster storm here as the forecast for February continue to be cold into March. Looks like it's going to hold up, folks. Taking a look at our snow depth over the next few days. Michigan's looking like you're going to get more snow than we once thought. 17 inches in parts of Michigan. The Northeast looking at about 9 to 10 inches over the next 10 days. So that's also good news for us because we thought we were going to get close to a foot of snow here in a couple of days. Al No is still cool and in neutral conditions right now at 0.406 above baseline. Our sea ice, guess what? Still growing. Still growing. Yep. Growing more than it was in 2012 as well. That's pretty much all I have for tonight. Henrik, was there anything you wanted to talk about tonight as far as that was on your mind when it comes to Grand Solar Minimum and these worldly events?
Well, I can say I'm sorry for interrupt you before, but that was because I was just seeing on the internet now that there has been a Chinese icebreaker that had a collision with an iceberg in Antarctica.
Oh, yeah? What are they studying? Global warming?
I don't know, but I mean, an icebreaker has a collision with an iceberg. I mean, it's so silly to think about.
It is.
So silly.
And
well, yes, come on.
It seems like we get these stories at least 3 or 4 times a winter where an icebreaker gets stuck in the ice.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say. Well, a lot of people have been writing to me here lately. I have got a lot of fan mail on my email, or should I say hate mail, I think is the proper word. Because of my burning bush, a lot of religious people have been writing to me, and I did not think about that before they write me, because, you know, when I make fun videos like I do sometimes on my channel, I don't do it to mock people with religious beliefs or political beliefs. I only do it to mock and make fun of the climate scientists who believe in man-made global warming, you know. So I'm very sorry if I defend anybody, but I will never change my humor, and that's just the way it is. And if people want to see my movie on my channel with the burning bush, you should be welcome. And I can tell you that after that meeting, I actually found the right burning bush. It all started like a rumor, you know. And then I found the real burning bush. And the rumor I have heard was that, are we offline?
No. Keep going.
Okay.
I changed the screen real quick.
The rumor was telling me that there was something wrong about global warming, and why there are so many scientists who are saying stuff like they do when it's not true, you know. So I found the burning bush, and I did not really know what to do about the burning bush, you know. So I think, well, I can always torture it a little bit, but how do you torture a burning bush, you know? And I don't want to be nasty on the radio, so you have to imagine me standing over the bush and piss on it, and the bush go, I talk. So the burning bush was actually telling me, you know, that the global warming is all a scam that is starting back in the days with the, well, I don't know if the Bush is telling me the truth, but that's just what the Bush was telling me. And I don't know if it is a George Bush or a Kate Bush, and I don't care. But the Bush was telling me that it all started back with the Bilderberg. Is it called that? I think the Bilderberg group. Yeah, and I thought, you know, well, I have to kill that Bush. So I did, you know, and went home and thought that it was all a scam. It was a bad rumor. But then I got to think a little about it and think, well, who is it that are gaining at the Bilderberg? And then I began to read a little about Bilderberg, because I'm not a conspiracy guy like you know, I'm not either. So I did not know a lot about the Bilderbergs, but after I have been reading a lot about them now, you know, it's all the political top guys in the world, you know, it's the business people, it's the oil people. And if you think about it, who is it they are gaining of the global warming scam today? It's exactly the same people.
Yeah. Henrik, I'm going to show your video real quick to my followers. Look, the part I like about this is that you actually took the time to set up another device with a recording voice that implies that this bush is talking. Again, I don't see any harm in this. I'm going to show everybody real quick what was going on here.
Welcome to the Danish Grand Solar Minimum channel. Oh, it's so hot today, you know.
Your sandals.
Nice summer.
Yes.
And today I'm down under in Australia. I'm looking for the burning bush. Huh?
And I got a t-shirt on.
Yeah, I can see you. You don't look like a bush to me. The global warming is real, because they're so stupid. They will believe me. I'm the burning bush. I'm the burning bush.
I'm sorry, but
No, I'm sorry.
You sent me that the other day, and it literally made me laugh out loud at work. So definitely appreciate that video there. But you don't change your humor. I knew that you would catch flack for this, but this is I think it's petty. You weren't trying to attack anybody with religious beliefs or religious views. This topic is so stressful, and I'm glad there's people like you out there that can give us some things that'll make us smile and laugh, because a lot of the times when we talk about the topic of this and what's happening around the world, there's nothing really to smile and laugh about. So it's nice to see videos like this that are just trying to take our minds off of things and, you know, making fun of the climate, which is one of my favorite things to do. So Mari, did you want to say hello to everybody in the chat, or hi?
Yeah, hello everybody. I just want to say I'm so glad that you write to me under the program. Thank you.
Is that what I sound like, Henrik?
It's pretty close.
Oh my
I don't know.
God. No, everyone compliments me. They say not only am I good looking, I sound good too, Cheek.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank Dustin. He did a super chat, 420.
Nice.
Just for you.
Thank you, Dustin.
Okay, so Dustin
And Henrik.
He's taking a break from the chat. He's walking his dog in I think he said -11. I don't know. He's cold. And then there's a lot of people sharing information about building greenhouses, what they're building greenhouses out of, pros and cons, tips and tricks, some interesting things being shared in the chat as always. A lot of new faces as well. So hello, everyone. Welcome to GSM. And definitely check out our site. If you have something you want to share, pictures or, your garden, what you're doing, you create a profile on GSM, the grandsolarminimum.com, and share them. We probably, if you give us permission, we can show them on the show.
Yep. That would be great. Thank you, Mari, for your insight for tonight's show. Appreciate that as always. Henrik, like every Sunday that you're here, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure sitting here and going over this stuff and having you here to talk with.
Oh, it's always my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for us tonight. Please like and share, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification button. Also, I will put after the show Henrik's channel in our description, the Danish Grand Solar Minimum channel, Henrik. So I noticed you changed the name, and I think that's appropriate for you. You've always claimed to be the Danish Grand Solar Minimum channel, and I'm just kind of glad to see you actually put that in the title of your channel now. So I like it.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that there are coming more and more. There is also a Wales Grand Solar Minimum channel now. Please check it out because he has some very good videos with some very good links from around Europe and the rest of the world. So please check out the Wales Grand Solar Minimum channel, please.
Yeah, we've seen his work as well, and we're excited to see other people join the conversation, covering these events as they happen. And it's not to me. It's just the fact that channels like us have already piqued the interest, and we're seeing new channels popping up left and right, and that's good. That's good that people are paying attention. That's good that people, take it to the grandsolarminimum.com. But that's good that people are becoming interested in this topic, and they want to start a channel to talk about this, to raise more awareness. But anyway, that's going to do it for us tonight. We do plan on doing a show tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Until then, guys, we'll talk soon. Have a safe evening. Bye-bye. See you, Henrik.
Yeah, bye-bye.